You're listening to All In. This is the podcast dedicated to helping you fulfill the mission of God in your life and around the world. I'm your host, Jeff Rupert. Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of All In. I want to ask you a question. What do chocolate, watches, multi-tool, pocket knives, Karl Barth, Hans Ernst Balthasar, John Calvin, Emil Brunner, Philip Schaff, and Friedrich Nietzsche all have in common? Well, they have Switzerland in common. Switzerland is, I think, probably what heaven's going to look like, only with sunny beaches. It's got a population of just under 9 million people, 5 official languages, German, French, Italian, and Romish. Yet this small little nation has global influence far beyond its size. And it's known not only for its watches and cool knives and brilliant theologians. It's a country of tremendous influence in the world, politically, culturally. It's stunningly beautiful. The people are creative, meticulous, and influential. And today it's my privilege to have on this week's episode of All In the national leader of the Foursquare Church of Switzerland, Volker Heitz. Volker, welcome.
Thank you, Jeff.
It's a joy to be with you and to count you as a friend. Volker is pastor in Basel, Switzerland. He's also the president of Foursquare Switzerland and the chairman of Foursquare Europe. Now, Volker, let's talk some about your pastoring there in Basel. That's a very fascinating city to me because a number of theologians that I've always enjoyed reading have taught there, and I can imagine that it's got some influence in how you do ministry there, the culture, the history of that great city. How does that impact what you do as a pastor in a local context?
Yes, thank you, Jeff. I pastoring a little bit outside of Basel. It's actually another canton. It's called Basel-Land. It's the suburbs of Basel.
Okay.
The inner city in Basel is mostly, in some areas you have a lot of immigrants. It's like a major city, urban life. So a lot of the families 20 years ago, 30 years ago, they moved outside to the suburbs, like in many cities in this world. And we also started our church here in the suburb of Basel, outside of Basel, under families and kids use families. That's our focus.
Okay. What's it like ministering there? I just think of the long history of influence of everybody from John Calvin to Karl Barth that has had global influence in the world. What is it like in your context? How does that shape the mindset of the people, or does it really have any influence anymore in the mindset and the culture of the people?
Yes, that's an interesting question, Jeff. I would say we have a rich heritage, great influence. These great theologians like the man you mentioned, Karl Barth, or also Calvin. But I would say in the present Switzerland, people, they don't recognize this heritage anymore. Actually, when I'm talking with Filipinos, talking with Africans, or talking with Jeff Roper, they mention, Calvin or Karl Barth, and I would say many people here in Basel or Geneva, they not even know what these people did.
Is that right?
I had one pastor in the Philippines, I think it was in Manila, and he went to Geneva, to Calvin's place and the different places there that talks about the history of Calvin. And he asked people in the streets about Calvin, and they could not even, they said, "What are you talking about? We don't have no idea what you're talking about." And he was shocked and almost depressed and said, "What happened with your people in Switzerland? You have such great history and this great man in the kingdom of God, and nobody has recognized them anymore." And I would say that's a sad truth in our country that we lost a lot of this great heritage in the past.
So Switzerland would be classified completely as a post-Christian nation, then you would say?
Yes, absolutely. With very little influence from the Christian heritage, the Reformations that went through Basel, Zurich, Zwingli in Zurich, Basel, we had Lombard and others, and in Geneva, Calvin, but there is very little is left of that. Yeah.
What would be the average, would you say, percentage of the population that have any type of an evangelical faith?
Oh, we talk about 3 to 4% in evangelical background, but then we have the Reformed Church and Catholic Church. So we say maybe 8% they are affiliated with any kind of church in Switzerland. Yeah.
And that would be any type of affiliation. They may go twice a year, 2 or 3 times a year, but not necessarily.
Christmas and Easter mostly.
Yeah,
Christmas and Easter.
Yeah.
That's for the most of them. Yeah, and right.
So when you're there in your town and somebody asks you what you do, and you tell them you're a pastor, what kind of reaction do you typically get?
Yeah, mostly I don't tell them I'm a pastor. I tell them I work with families, I work with young people, I work with children. We helping people in different circumstances, and then of course, if they are more interested, we talk about our values coming out from the Bible, and then we have to explain, about the values and to subscribe to them what we mean with values from the Bible. What are the values still that are working today? And then people, if they are interested, we get in deeper conversations. But if I say I'm a pastor, for people they would say, okay, you're a cult group, or what is it? If you're not Reformed or Catholic, there is no understanding in our society what you do.
Okay. Yeah, that seems to be the norm in pretty much every country now in Europe, unfortunately.
Right.
I know for myself even it is the one question I dread the most when I'm either on an airplane or out and about, when people say, "What do you do?" And I come up with all sorts of creative ways of explaining what I do without ever mentioning, because the baggage that's associated with it.
Right. Right.
And it's the unique aspects of ministering in a post-Christian environment that they have a framework, a language. They'll know what you mean when you say church, and they'll think they know what you mean when you say pastor, but it's in a context that is less than accurate in the representation of what we're saying.
Absolutely true. Yes, absolutely true. There's a lot of baggage, a lot of misconceptions, misunderstandings that we have to work through. Yeah, if we get to deep, real conversations.
So how have you, as both a local church and Foursquare Switzerland, navigated through this? Are there some principles and practices that you've developed that help you reach the people?
Yeah, it's love, acceptance, connecting with people, sharing real life experience. So for us, when we started a church here in this area in Switzerland, we start with a lot of children's outreach. We went to playgrounds or invited children during their vacation time, school vacation, to camps. And it's really working with children. Their parents have to see, okay, they are good people, they care for my children, they are real people. You have to earn trust with the people and to connect with people, and they have to feel the acceptance. They don't have to do things for you, or you don't want their money, for example. That's always a fear here. And if you connect in a real way and you earn trust, then you get to deeper issues and you can also talk about the Bible and the message, the good news, from the Bible. We just had last week, we had a training, how do we reach people in Switzerland, in our Foursquare movement in Switzerland. And we had some testimonies from people who came to face these last months, in the different churches. We had some people there, and they shared their journey. And they said it was really important for them to be accepted as they are, with their brokenness, with their messed up life. And they also said it was important that nobody tried to fill me up with Bible verses, all of them said nobody tried to make me read the Bible or make me to listen to his sermons, they just accepted me. They shared life with me. They helped me in my life circumstances. They earned trust. What I understood was they earned my trust. They really loved me. And so I was willing to talk with them and receive from them also. And I think that's the key, how we reach people in Western Europe, I would say, but especially in Switzerland, I'm sure about.
Yeah, that seems to be the common thread of what I've been seeing throughout Europe is you have to really get down to quality of life issues.
Yes.
Because in Europe, especially Western Europe, you have affluence, you have prosperity, you have some stability, but they still have a God-shaped emptiness in their heart. And the fact that Jesus came to give us an abundant life. And I love how you're talking about this acceptance. It's unfortunate sometimes the church gets caught up into political agendas and we're against this lifestyle, we're against this thing, or we're against that. Well, the church ought to be known for being for people.
Amen. Yes, right. And the fear of people is that we want to make them, do our agenda, or that they have to do things they don't want to do, and so they have to be reached with love and acceptance, and that is the Holy Spirit will do His work and transform people step by step.
Yeah, and it's the whole thing about the incarnation of Jesus. You look how you're doing exactly how Jesus did it.
Yes, incarnational lifestyle. That's a big value for us here in Switzerland. Yeah.
What do you feel as the leader of Foursquare Switzerland? What do you feel is God's specific assignment for Foursquare Switzerland at this season?
We started the training. Actually, this next Saturday we start a new group. We call it training for missional initiatives, and we have a group of people that we meet over a year once a month and train with them and talk with them about certain values, but also how can we reach people, what is important, how can I share the message about Jesus in a meaningful way. How can we pray for people if they open up for us with their needs and with their problems, prayer requests? How can we disciple them in a postmodern context?
Okay.
So I think the big challenge for us and what we focus on is how do we reach the people in Switzerland? We have to get down and focus and connect with the people in our country. We cannot sit in our buildings or rooms or services and wait that the people will come and then they will hear. We have to prepare people, train them, teach them, go along with them and help them to go to the people, to meet the people where they at, in the sports club, in the fire department, on the street, in the restaurants, wherever, and connect with them and walk with them and lead them to Christ in a process.
Yeah. I love that. It's that whole incarnational aspect of just being with people and not trying to do some program to the people. I think that is brilliant. Now
Absolutely, yeah.
let's spread out our perspective a little bit and look at, from your perspective as the chairman of Foursquare Europe. I want to let's talk about the challenges, opportunities, and needs that you see in Europe.
Yeah, I would say, we have Western Europe, Eastern Europe. There's maybe a little bit a difference, but I think more and more, it's more and more the same
Yeah.
challenges in Eastern than in Western Europe. But it's basically the same. We talk about how can we reach the people, how can we be involved in city transformation. That's the term we use. How can we train up people and send people in the major cities in Europe, in different countries, to reach people, not just to start a church and collect believers and get them from other churches to come to our church. No, how can we reach pagans, people without any knowledge of the Bible, without any understanding of spiritual realities, and how can we reach them and disciple them and invest for them for a movement in Europe.
Yeah, this whole thing about connecting with them at a personal level reminds me of when I was pastoring a local church. One of the churches in our neighborhood spent well over $100,000 on starting a Christian coffee house in the neighborhood, and our neighborhood had 20. I counted them. I think 24 coffee shops of some shape, form, or fashion. And they wanted to. They went and started another one that was going to be a Christian one, and with the idea that they could bring people there and win them to Jesus. Great motive. You can't fault the motive, but I thought you could probably just buy $20,000 worth of Starbucks gift cards and give those to the people in your church and say, go to Starbucks and hang out with people,
right,
and go every week and start building relationship, and you'd probably meet a lot more people that don't know Jesus, and you'd build a lot more relationships. And Starbucks already built the building for you. Starbucks has the coffee for you. All you have to do is just show up and be there with them. And it's that whole aspect of the slow development of incarnational ministry. It takes a long time. It's not an event, it's a process.
Right. And we have to be there where the people at. We cannot expect the people coming to us, or we have our program and expect the people to join our program. We have to be where the people at.
Yeah.
We had a conference in Anaheim from Foursquare Movement, and one of the speakers talked about do something church, and the concept he developed was, what is the people who are hurting in your community? What is the pain around your in your city or in your area, and connect with the people and with the pain of these people, and be there where they are, in order to reach them and be with them and connect with them. And I liked the concept to connect with the pain of the people and see and listen where the people at.
Yeah, that is so good, so true. Now let's change gears a little bit and talk about how you personally came to know Jesus Christ. What's your story?
Okay, I have a grandpa who prayed for me as a kid already. My mom became a Christian, and they tried to bring me, to churches to teach me the Bible, but I was a pretty rebellious teenager. But with 17, turning 18, between 17 and 18, I got frustrated about how things worked out for me as a young man. I got frustrated in my group of friends, and I felt a steering to pursue what I heard from my grandpa, from what I heard from my mom. And I agreed to attend the meetings that was in our city. and the Lord touched me in these meetings, and I opened my eyes and I gave my life to Jesus as a young man, not even 18 years old, and that changed my whole course of my life. After that, I made decisions, in another direction. Later on, I did a social year, things we do here in Europe, and I did it in a Christian organization and worked with children, with young people, and there I heard a calling on my life, and I felt I want to pursue ministry.
So at 21, you decided to go to seminary?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I went to seminary and I did 3 years in east of Switzerland, and then the last 2 years I came to Basel and finished here. And during this time in Basel, we started to go to the streets, to go to coffees, and connect with people. And our methods, or the goal always was, when we went to the street, when we talk with people in coffees, to challenge them about the Bible and say, hey, have you ever read the Bible? Do you know about the Bible? And, people had no idea, or they felt, no, Bible is old book. I don't need to read that, or I know everything about the Bible. And we challenged them, come on, we could read together if you're interested. And if people agree to that, we met them in a coffee, and we started to read the Gospel of John, starting chapter 1, and we read through 1, 2, 3, through all the chapters. And we experienced that people in the coffee shop, during read the Bible together, gave their life to Jesus.
Wow.
And that was the start of our first church in Basel.
That's
and it was
great.
a church with a lot of young people, mostly students, that came together and gave their life to Jesus through these Bible studies.
That is great. Now, now that you're at this stage of life and you look back, who have been some of the major influences that have shaped your life and ministry?
Yeah, with 20, of course, there was some people at the seminar that I attended that were very important for me, who gave me an idea about church, about the kingdom of God, what discipleship, all these concepts. I got a lot from my Bible seminar. And we wanted to try it out, and that was what we did then on the streets of Basel, and started this student church, or whatever, church with a lot of young people. And I led this church around 10 years. Different people had influence on me during this time, but I never had a mentor, or I would call it a pastor for pastors. I felt I had nobody I could go to when I had questions or difficulties. And that was the time when I met Daniel Brown, a pastor, Foursquare pastor from Santa Cruz. And he, I started to share with him about my questions and difficulties. And after leading 10 years this church, he invited me and my wife to come for a year to California, to Santa Cruz, and spend time there to get more training and experience discipleship for my own life, and finally have somebody who is investing in me. I felt years before I invested a lot in young people, but I had nobody who was intentionally investing in my life.
Okay.
And so we did a decision and went for a year for sabbatical, we called it, and some further studies to California. And I attended the church with Daniel Brown, and I became part of Foursquare during this time.
Okay, so that's how you got connected with Foursquare.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Now
After this sabbatical, I returned to Switzerland with my wife as a Foursquare pastor. I became part of Foursquare during this time. And then we moved outside of Basel to the suburbs, what I shared in the beginning. and started the first Foursquare church here in Switzerland. Yeah.
So this is a different church than the
Yes.
one you had before. Okay.
Right. It's a different church. Yeah.
Okay. Now you probably don't remember this, but the first time you and I actually met was at the Jack Hayford School of Pastoral Nurture there in Los Angeles in Van Nuys years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I don't know if that was during the same time you were living in at the internship program there with Daniel, or if you were going back for a visit or something, because I remember we talked one day during the break and you had mentioned, you'd introduced yourself and that you were going, after this you would be going up to spend time with Daniel. So I don't know where that fit in the frame.
When was that, 94 or 95? Or when was that? You remember?
Yeah, would have been back in there, 94, 95, somewhere in there.
Okay, so then it was during my time with Daniel and the Coastlands, yes.
Wow, yeah, so that was I distinctly remember meeting you there. Well, one of the questions that somebody would have when they would look at you as you're a husband, you're a father, you're a local church pastor, you're president of a national church, and you're the chairman of Foursquare Europe. How in the world do you keep balance in your life?
I had to learn it the hard way, Jeff. After the first 10 years, starting this first church, getting married, we had our first kid during this time. I experienced almost a burnout. Or maybe my wife would say I had a burnout. And I was very unbalanced. I was very pushing, going, no breaks, no sabbatical, no Sunday, no time for myself. And I had to learn that. And especially this year at the Coastlands, I had to learn different disciplines, like taking a Sabbath, having silence time only for myself, retreat, all these disciplines. And I had to learn them. And when I came back and we started the church here, 96 was that, in outside of Basel, I started to plan times in my schedule to retreat, to have a Sabbath, to have a silent retreat. For example, in our church calendar, we have twice a year, we offer a silent retreat where we go away for a weekend, a long weekend, or sometimes a week, and just have time for prayer, for reflection, to be silent, to be alone, yes, and to get refreshed in my faith and in my personal walk with God.
It's one of those things, if you don't plan it, it won't happen, will it?
Right.
Yeah, and I think that's something we as leaders often forget. It's easy to blame everybody else for how busy and demanding our schedules are, but we still can control our schedule.
Right.
We can still, and if we don't control our schedule, someone else will, and they'll always do it wrong.
Right. But I had to learn to be aware of my needs. As a young pastor, young leader with so many expectations, demands, opportunities, whatever you call it, you just go and you run and you do. And I had to learn to be aware of my needs, to be aware of my limits, to be aware of my boundaries, and to learn to live in my boundaries.
Yeah.
And to feel and see when is enough and when do I have to say no, and how to manage my schedule. Yeah, as you said, it's totally right.
That probably came out of that season of burnout.
Yes, that was during the season, and after the season, I had to learn these disciplines and how to manage and how to stay in my limits.
I think we have a new status symbol today called exhaustion. That if we can brag about how busy we are and how productive we are and how many hours a day we work, that's a new status symbol. And the Bible really frowns on that.
Yes.
And I think you set a good example of this, of trying to pursue a balanced life. And so I commend you for that.
Yeah, I would say we have some good examples in Europe in our movement. People where we brag more. Have you done a Sabbath? Have you done, a retreat? Do you take care of your personal walk with God? And I think we need each other also to encourage and to hold each other accountable. How we manage our personal walk and life with Jesus.
And I can tell you myself from personal experience, I have experienced that from all of my European friends. And I've learned a deep appreciation and respect for the rhythms of life that I've learned from my European colleagues. So I'm deeply appreciative of that.
Yeah. We figured out, maybe a last point to that. We figured it's important also to have a rhythm for your church. Even because you said the people are so busy, the people have so tense schedule, and it's important to learn and to teach and to establish a rhythm for your church. There's a time to go and to do, but there has to also be a time to reflect and to rest, and we have to establish a rhythm for our churches.
Yeah, that's very true. Good advice. One of the ministry skills that I've watched firsthand with you over several years of us working together is your very good ability, a unique ability to lead meetings with diverse opinions, cultures, and languages. It's very. We'll have a European meeting, and we can have 20 to 24 nations, or sometimes even more, represented in those meetings, and you're tasked with navigating through agendas. Is this a learned skill that you have, or does it just come natural to you?
I would say it's also maybe part of my heritage. I think it's in our culture in Switzerland. You get very sensitive to language barriers because, as you said, we have these 4 national languages. So you get aware of different culture backgrounds. People see things different, argue different, respond in a different way. So I would say that's maybe a skill that here in Switzerland the people have in their life, because we are used to that. Different languages, different culture backgrounds, different ways of thinking, and the skill to listen and to be aware of the different views, the different ways. I think, that's a big part of it.
And you do see this as a trait of your culture, because many times the Swiss are called upon to help mediate very intense international situations, and it's because you guys are so good at it. It's amazing.
Right, I would say that's a skill in our culture, and that's one of the reasons. And then another thing is we are neutral in Switzerland.
Yes.
We don't. People are not afraid of us. we don't try to conquer other nations or to impose whatever our way of thinking on them. So it's kind of a safe place for people. That's, I think, the reason why a lot of these negotiations take place here in Switzerland. But then also the skill to listen, the skill to give room, the skill to listen and appreciate and give room. And I think that's important, especially when we come together in Europe. I mean, our continent is not so big like other continents, but as you say, we have 26 nations maybe in the room, and they all speak other languages. The hard language is not English or French or German. They all have a different hard language, and there's difficulties to voice their opinion. So it needs time, it needs freedom to voice their opinion, to be themselves, and yeah, it's so important to create a safe place so that people feel safe enough to say what they think or feel or what they want to offer to the whole group.
Yeah, and I think you've done a masterful job of that, even navigating some of the long-held cultural suspicions that no matter how much we grow in Jesus, we still seem to carry around with us. And here
Right.
in Europe, we've Europe's been at war with each other for thousands of years, and it's only been relatively a short period of time that those wars have mostly ceased. And
Right.
to be able to
Right.
navigate, to understand that history first of
Yeah.
all, and to appreciate and to respect the fact that this, whether you agree with it, that person or not, you respect the fact that that's the way they see the world,
Right.
and you make
Yeah.
room for it, and you give that secure place, that safe place where people can open up and discuss whatever topic it is that we might be needing to make a decision on. And I think that's been something that, watching you lead other leaders, sometimes we have this concept of a leader as the one who walks into the room and tells everybody what to do. And that's
That will
really,
not work in Europe, Jeff.
no,
Let me say that.
yeah, it does not work in Europe. What I love about it is it makes room for leadership in each one of the individual leaders, and they
Uh-huh.
blossom in that environment.
Right. Right. And I think we have to be aware. I mean, the world is becoming a village, we're saying, and that's true in one sense. And but the understanding often is, oh, everybody speaks English and we are all the same and we listen all to the same music, so it's all the same. But the fact is, Europe is very diverse,
Yeah.
and not everybody speaks English enough to share their heart.
Yeah.
I mean, even I feel it's difficult in this interview, to look. I'm constantly trying to find the right words.
Yes.
I'm thinking in German and translate in my mind, to find the right word. So it's difficult to talk in another language and express your deep feelings, your convictions. And then we have all a different background, culture background, and I think it's important to be aware of that and to respect that, and then also see the value of it, because there's also a beauty to it. Diverse, being diverse and different. There's also a beauty in it because we all can offer different perspectives.
Yeah.
To the same thing, and we can add to and complement each other with different points.
Yeah, that's very true. Well, I will only torture you with two more questions. I do appreciate you stretching like this. I know it's not your mother tongue. If we had a time machine, if I had a time machine and I could put Volker in that time machine and send you back to your 25-year-old self, what advice would you give?
Yeah, I would say relax, enjoy. Things come good. I felt in my early years of ministry, I was nervous. I was, oh, will I miss something? Do I really do the right thing? Should I do whatever? And I would say to young leaders, enjoy the season you are in. Ecclesiastic. So what's the book in the Bible?
Yeah. Ecclesiastes.
It says there's a time for everything. There's a season for every activity. So I would say enjoy the season you are in and relax in it, because God is there and God will guide you and lead you. I feel when I look back, I was, in my early years, too much concerned about things and always think, oh, maybe I should do the next thing. When I look back, I would say no. Enjoy the season you are in and see what God is doing in this season. And then seasons will change and there will be coming other seasons. But yeah, relax and enjoy.
Very good. Good advice. If somebody wanted to connect with you or Foursquare Europe, how would they do that?
Yeah, we have a web page, and maybe you can put the our homepage in the show notes, and also the email from our secretary. In Frankfurt, we have an office for Foursquare Europe, and Helga, our secretary there, she can put people in contact wherever their interest will be in Europe. We have Europe, different national leaders take responsibility for different nations. Mm-hmm. And so, for example, you have somebody for the Balkans, you have somebody who is overseeing the Nordic area, Scandinavia, but we have, other people, national leaders in the different countries. So if they would send an email to Helga or go to our homepage, Foursquare Europe, we can put them in the contact with the right person.
Great. I'll be sure to include that in the show notes. Well, Volker, thank you so much for being with us today. It's been a joy and a delight.
Thank you, Jeff, for what you do. God bless. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Well, we're done now. Thanks for listening. This is Jeff Roper reminding you that the mission of God is too grand for mediocrity or average living. You were created for a purpose, and that purpose is found in the mission of God. It's your life. Now go live it.